There's no greater feeling than preparing your environment, your mind, and your instrument ready for creativity to begin. The anticipation that in just a few moments, new music will be born into the world through the simple act of playing beautiful chords on a beautiful instrument. Man, I wish I knew more beautiful chords. Yet we can all get a little stuck or held back in songwriting when we reach the limits of our musical ability on our instrument. And this is absolutely normal. In fact, we're often encouraged to stick to a style. As musicians, songwriters, composers, we typically start off by learning songs that we like, using that as inspiration, and then developing it into our own unique style. Then we stay in lane, not wanting to disappoint fans when we release that tricky second album. But this often leads to musical complacency, using the same chords, progressions, and structure in all of our songs. So let's explore some beautiful chords that may seem a little scary when we first see the names of them, but with a little practice can easily be incorporated into our songwriting, adding just a hint of spice to our musical cooking pot. So the first thing we're going to try and spice up is a simple G to C chord progression. Let's say we're writing a kind of mid-tempo, low energy song and the chords G and C work just fine. But they sound a bit samey, a bit too common. Well, what we can do is change our G major chord to a G major 7. Now we do this by dropping the octave G down a half step to an F sharp. Now I use my first finger to cover that F sharp, and my middle finger just lightly mutes that open A string, as we don't want that A to sound. I then also use my ring finger just to place in another D. Already sounds far more interesting, but we can do the same thing with the C, just by moving all of our fingers straight down to the 8th fret, making a C major 7 add 9. We put those two together. Really beautiful way of making those two chords sound far more interesting. So I might use this as a song opener, perhaps carried on throughout the verse, perhaps not. Personal choice. So maybe we're in the same song and we want to add in a bridge, perhaps even a break or a coda, and we've settled on the chords C, D, and E minor. And again, the chords work fine, but we don't want fine. We want Cajun pepper. So when we're playing in the key of G, a version of C that works really well is a C add 9. So this adds in a D, which is the 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of the C major scale, hence C add 9. It's also the 5 of the G major scale, so it reinforces that this chord is away from the home chord, the 1, the G, but still kind of holding the door. We also use our pinky to add in another G, which is already in the C chord, but it just ties us in a little bit more consistently with that G chord. But rather than going home, the 1, we want to go to a D major. But we're going to make this a D add 9/11, simply by moving all of our fingers up a whole tone to the D root note. And then lastly, we move to an E minor chord, but we're on a roll here. We don't want to play just any old E minor. We're going to slide up to an E minor add 9. Now the same shape would make this an E major. So we just simply slide our first finger back a half step to make this an E minor add 9. Side note, the E minor is the relative minor to the G chord, making an E minor sound like it almost could be home, but like a second home. So a perfect opportunity to play this chord with a little more oomph. So when I play the C and the D, I very lightly use my thumb just to mute that top string, making the most powerful bass notes, that's C and D, on the A string. However, when I move up to the E minor add 9, I take my thumb off and I play that big, chunky, fat E string, giving this a really powerful sound. This makes that final change sound more powerful and emotional. Okay, so now I have 4 funky chord variations to show you and how I might use them. So grab a pen or screenshot the tabs, as these might be a little trickier to remember, but they sound oh so sweet. Starting with the F sharp minor add 9/11. Ooh. So you can probably work out by now that we're holding the top half of a regular F sharp minor, but we're adding in the 9 notes of the F sharp minor scale, which is a G sharp, and the 11 note, which is this open B. A beautiful chord in its own right, but where should this resolve? It's clearly not the 1 chord. We resolve to an E add 9. It's almost a regular E major, just with the octave E, the A moved up to the 9, which is an F sharp. Now that's our verse sorted, but we need a bridge or a pre-chorus. So let's go to the B add 11 over D sharp. And then to the A add 9. And then finally, end on the E add 9. A beautiful chord to close a song on. Then, just as a bonus chord, if we wanted to open a song in a dramatic, moody way, we could turn this E add 9 into an E minor add 9 just by dropping the first finger. Now, I never really use this one, as it's a little bit too, it's high noon and Billy the Kid's in town, but it's one for the toolbox. So the last spicy chord I'm going to show you may sound a little bit strange when used on its own, but it will sound right when used in context. So an F major 7 sharp 11, feel free to screenshot the tab on this one, may sound a little off when used out of context. But when we use this as a 4 chord where we're stepping down to the 1, it sounds perfect. So if the F is the 4 chord, that would make C the 1. So we're stepping down from the F major 7 sharp 11 to the E minor 7 to the D minor 7 to the C major 7. It's a very jazzy chord progression which never quite feels resolved, which means we can just keep jamming on this until the early hours of the morning. But when it's finally time to call it a night and all the drunks have gone home to bed, house lights have been turned back on, we do have one last chord we can use to beautifully beautifully bring this jazzy night to a close. A C major 13. A truly spicy way to say goodnight. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. It would mean the world to me if you subscribed for more, and perhaps I'll see you in the next video.